Mystery of fake jewels.
Mr. Lawton met the young girl at a party, at the home of his boss, and he fell deeply in love with her. She was the daughter of a tax collector from a small town who had passed away a few years ago. She and her mother moved to Paris. The mother hoped to find a husband for her daughter by meeting families in their new neighborhood. They didn't have much money, but they were honest, kind, and quiet. The young girl was a perfect example of a good woman that sensible young man dream of marrying. Her simple beauty showed modesty, like an angel, and the small smile that was always on her lips seemed to come from a pure and lovely heart. People couldn't stop saying good things about her. They would often say,
"Lucky the man who wins her love. He couldn't find a better wife."
Mr. Lawton, who worked as a clerk in a government office, earned a salary of 3,500 francs. He proposed to the young girl, and she said yes. He was incredibly happy with her. She managed their home so well that they seemed to live a luxurious life. She treated her husband with kindness, spoiled him with attention, and her charm was so great that even after 6 years of marriage, Mr. Lawton realized he loved his wife even more than he did at the beginning. He only had 2 problems with her preferences. She loved going to the theater, and she liked imitation jewelry. Her friend, who were married to government workers, often got her tickets to the theater, usually for new plays. Her husband had to go with her, even if he didn't want to, after his long days at the office. After a while, Mr. Lawton asked his wife to have a friend go to the theater with her and bring her back home afterwards. At first, she didn't like the idea, but after he asked her many times, she agreed. This made Mr. Lawton really happy. As she loved going to the theater, she also started wanting jewelry. Her clothes stayed simple, nice, and humble, but she began wearing big fake diamonds in her ears that shine like real ones. She had fake pearl necklaces around her neck, fake gold bracelets on her arms, and combs with shiny glass pieces. Her husband would often tell her,
My dear, since we can't buy real jewelry, you should show off your beauty and modesty, which are the best ornaments.
but she would smile and say,
What can I do? I really like jewelry. It's my only weakness. We can't change who we are.
Then she would play with the fake pearls, making the fake jewels shine, and say,
Look, aren't they pretty? You'd think they're real.
Mr. Lawton would smile and say,
You like fancy things, my dear.
Sometimes, in the evening, when they were alone by the fire, she would put the leather box with the stuff, as Mr. Lawton called it, on the table. She would look at the fake gems carefully, like they brought her some special happiness. She liked putting a necklace around her husband's neck and laughing, saying,
You look funny.
Then she would hug him and give him kisses. One cold evening in winter, she had been to the opera and came home very cold. The next day, she started coughing, and 8 days later, she died from a lung infection. Mr. Lawton was extremely sad. His hair turned white. Within a month, he cried all the time, remembering her smile, her voice, and everything he loved about his wife, who had passed away. His sadness didn't go away with time. During work hours, when his colleagues talked about daily things, he would suddenly start crying and feel really sad. He kept his wife's room the way it was, When she was alive, her furniture and even her clothes were still there from the day she died. He spent time there every day, thinking about her, the person he loved. But life got tough. The money he earned, which used to be enough when his wife was alive, wasn't enough for himself. He couldn't buy the same nice things she did, like good wine and special food. He got into debt and soon became really poor. One morning, he had no money at all. He decided to sell something to get money. He thought about selling his wife's fake jewels because he had some anger towards them. They always annoyed him in the past. Looking at them reminded him of his lost wife. Even until her last days, she kept buying new jewelry, bringing home new pieces almost every evening. He spent some time deciding to sell the big necklace, the one she seemed to like a lot. He thought it might be worth around 6 or 7 francs. It was really well made, even though it wasn't real. He put it in his pocket and looked for a trustworthy jewelry shop. After a while, he found one and went in, feeling a little embarrassed to show his poor situation and offer something not valuable.
Sir,
He said to the shop owner.
I want to know how much this is worth.
The man took the necklace, looked at it, talked quietly to his assistant, and then put it on the counter. He looked at it from a distance, probably, to see how it looked. Mr. Luyện was getting annoyed by all the actions. He was about to say, "I know this isn't worth anything," when the shop owner said,
Sir, this necklace is worth from 12 to 15,000 francs, but I can't buy it unless you can tell me where it came from.
The man was really surprised and didn't understand what the shop owner meant. Finally, he said, "Are you sure?" The shop owner answered,
You can try other places to see if they'll offer more. I think it's worth 15,000 at the most. If you can't find better, come back here.
Mr. Luyện was shocked and took the necklace with him as he left the store. He needed some time to think. Once he was outside, he wanted to laugh and thought, what a fool I was. If only I had believed him. That jeweler can't tell real diamonds from fake ones. A few minutes later, he went into another shop on Golden Street. When the owner saw the necklace, he said,
Oh, I know this one. It was bought here.
Mr. Luyện, feeling uneasy, asked, "How much is it worth?"
Well, I sold it for 20,000 francs. I can buy it back from you for 18,000, but you need to tell me how you got it, following our rules.
This time, Mr. Luyện was really surprised. He said,
But, look at it carefully. I thought it was fake until now.
The shop owner asked,
What's your name, sir?
Lantern, I work for the Minister of the Interior. I live at number 16 Road Martyrs.
The merchant checked his records, found the information, and said,
That necklace was sent to Madame Lantern's address, 16 Road Martyrs, on July 20th, 1876.
Both men looked at each other. The widower was shocked, and the jeweler thought he might be a thief. The jeweler broke the silence.
Can you leave the necklace here for a day?
He asked.
I'll give you a receipt.
Mr. Luyện quickly replied.
Yes, of course.
Then he put the receipt in his pocket and left the store. He walked around the streets without a clear idea. His thoughts were all jumbled up. He tried to make sense of things. His wife couldn't have bought something so expensive. No way. But maybe it was a gift. A gift from whom? Why was it given to her? He stopped and stood in the middle of the street. A terrible doubt came to him. Was she involved? Then, maybe all the other jewelry was given to her as well. It felt like the ground shook beneath him, and the tree in front of him was falling. He raised his arms and fell down, unconscious. People helped him and took him to a pharmacy. He asked to be taken home. When he got back, he locked himself in his room and cried until it got dark. Eventually, he got so tired that he went to bed and fell asleep. The sun woke him up the next day. He slowly got dressed to go to work. After such shocks, it was hard to focus on work. He sent a letter to his boss, asking to be excused. Then he remembered he had to go back to the jewelry store. He didn't like the ideas, but he couldn't leave the necklace with that man. He got dressed and went out. It was a beautiful day, with a clear blue sky. Over the busy city, people without work were walking around with their hands in their pockets. Mr. Luyện watched them and thought, the rich people are happy. With money, you can forget even the worst sadness. You can go wherever you want, and traveling can distract you from grief. Oh, if only I were rich. He realized he was hungry, but he didn't have any money. He remembered the necklace again. 18,000 francs. What a huge amount. He reached Golden Street and stood across from the jewelry store. 18,000 francs. He wanted to go in 20 times, but he felt ashamed. He was really hungry, though very hungry, and had no money. He made a quick decision, crossed the street so he wouldn't think too much, and rushed into the store. The owner came up right away and offered him a chair politely. The clerks looked at him, knowing what was going on.
I checked, Mr. Luyện.
Said the jeweler.
And if you still want to sell the jewelry, I'm ready to pay the price I offered.
Sure, sir.
Mr. Luyện said, nervous. The owner took 18 big bills from a drawer, counted them, and gave them to Mr. Luyện. He signed a receipt and, with a shaky hand, put the money in his pocket. As he was about to leave the store, he looked at the jeweler, who still had the same knowing smile. He lowered his eyes and said,
I have other jewelry from the same place. Would you buy them too?
The jeweler nodded.
Of course, sir.
Mr. Luyện said seriously.
I'll bring them to you.
An hour later, he came back with the jewelry. The big diamond earrings were worth 20,000 francs. The bracelets were worth 35,000 and the rings 16,000. There was a set of emeralds and sapphires worth 14,000 and a gold chain with a solitaire pendant worth 40,000. Altogether, it was 143,000 francs. The jeweler said, jokingly,
Someone put all their savings into these precious stones.
Mr. Luyện answered seriously.
It's just another way to invest money.
That day, he had lunch at Voisin's and drank wine. That cost 20 francs a bottle. Then, he rented a carriage and went for a ride. In the Bois, he looked at the fancy carriages with a kind of disregard and almost wanted to tell the people inside.
Hey, I'm rich too. I have 200,000 francs.
Suddenly, he remembered his boss. He went to his workplace and walked in happily, saying,
Sir, I'm here to quit my job. I just inherited 300,000 francs.
He shook hands with his co-workers and shared some of his plans for the future with them. Then he went to have dinner at Café Anglais. He sat next to a well-dressed man, and during the meal, quietly told him that he had just inherited 400,000 francs. For the first time, he didn't feel bored. at the theater, and spent the rest of the night having fun. 6 months later, he got married again. His second wife was very virtuous, but had a quick temper. She caused him a lot of sadness. My first love. My phone rang, and again, it was my mother. This was her 5th time calling me and asking about my arrive time. I was returning home by train. It was 6 o'clock in the evening, and my train will reach the station at 8 o'clock. My office had given a 1-month holiday, and I was returning to my hometown to my mother. But this time, my mother was so excited on my arrival. I found this really strange, but I thought that she might have missed me a lot. At 8, I finally departed from the station and went straight to my home. The door opened, and behind it was my lovely mother.
Oh, my dear son, finally, you are back home,
She said with tears in her eyes. I hugged her when I saw her emotional face. We went to the living room, and there, I sat on the sofa. I was tired of my long journey. Mom, please bring me a glass of water, I said. But she didn't bring it and said beside me. At that time, she gave me a weird smile.
Your water is coming.
She said, still smiling. And then, a beautiful young lady of around 22 years entered the room. She brought the glass of water and gave it to me. She was quite nervous and shy. I could feel that she was uncomfortable. I took the glass and said thank you to her. My mother's eyes shone when she saw her. Then she said,
So, Peter, meet Lucy, our new house helper.
"Oh, okay. Welcome, Lucy," I said to her, smiling.
Thank you, sir.
She replied. Then suddenly, my mother screamed,
Oh, no, no, no. Don't call him sir. He has a nice name, Peter. Just call him Peter, and I will very happy.
"Yes, please call me Peter," I said again, smiling. Then, we went to the dining table and had our dinner. Lucy went to the kitchen for some work. Then my mother whispered to me,
Lucy is going to stay with us. Poor girl lost her parents last week, and there was no one to look after her. Poor child didn't even have house to live in because they were living on rent. So I decided to help her in my way. I was already looking for a maid.
"Oh, my dear mother, you did the best, but you know her well, right? You know, the youngsters nowadays, and having a complete stranger in our house."
No, she is not a stranger. I know her family well,
said my mother. After our conversation ended, I went to bed. The next morning, I got dressed and went to the breakfast table. Lucy and my mom had prepared my favorite breakfast. My mother sat down with me, but Lucy was standing, and she had a shy face.
Come, Lucy, let's have the breakfast together,
said my mother. Yes, join us, Lucy, I added. She sat down beside me. Then, I looked at her closely for the first time. She had blue eyes just as mine. I really felt a bond with her.
I was thinking about going to the market to buy some clothes for Lucy.
Oh, but you know, Peter, I am really tired today.
Can you go with Lucy?
Said my mother. Yes, I can go with Lucy, I said hesitantly.
Oh, lovely, you both can spend time with each other,
Replied my mother very happily. I didn't understand that. Why my mother wanted me to spend time with Lucy. I suspected her intentions. Then we headed to the market. Lucy bought some dresses. Even I helped her to select the dresses. I noticed that we have a lot of similarities. Later, we went to a coffee shop. We talked a lot. She told about her life. I told her about my life. I felt really happy talking to her. At around 6 p.m., we reached back our house. I thought my mother would be angry with us, but instead she was so happy that we spent time together. Even she suggested that I should take Lucy to park tomorrow. I was surprised. There was something in my mother's head. Then, before having our dinner, I talked to my mother. Mom, can you please explain me? What do you want? I have noticed that you are acting weird these days. Why do you want me to spend time with Lucy? What is going on in your mind? I asked.
I know, Peter, what you are thinking, but believe me, I really love Lucy and I don't want to treat her like a maid. I just want her to feel like she is a part of our family,
Replied my mother. I didn't say anything after this. My mother clearly wanted to make Lucy a part of our family, and that was possible if she became my wife. Lucy prepared my favorite cake to thank me. After having it, we went to the terrace. We had a really special time together. We laughed and talked. Then for a moment, my eyes looked straight into her eyes. There was silence. She looked beautiful in the moonlight. I held her hand. Then she smiled at me. What a beautiful night it was. I went to bed, but I couldn't sleep. I was just thinking of Lucy. I felt a special bond with her from the very first day. And now, I knew that I was in love with Lucy. I needed to tell this to my mom and Lucy. My mother would be very happy because she wanted this. I decided that I would propose Lucy tomorrow night. Early the next morning, I went to buy a ring for Lucy. I made some arrangements in the backyard. I decorated it with lights and flowers. My mother didn't know that I was going to propose Lucy. I thought I would tell her later. At night, I took Lucy in the backyard. She was so happy to see arrangements I made for her. Then, I bent down on my knees, took out the ring, and proposed her. She was very happy and had tears in her eyes. Then she screamed.
Yes, yes, yes.
Hearing her voice, my mother came into the yard. She saw the ring in my hand and Lucy in front of her. I was just putting the ring into Lucy's finger, and my mother shouted,
"What is all this? What are you doing, Peter?"
I laughed and replied, "I am going to marry Lucy, my first love, and this is what you wanted me to do. Believe me, mother, I am the happiest man today."
What nonsense! You can't marry her. Are you both out of your senses?
My mother shouted, and then she fainted. I couldn't understand anything. Lucy and I quickly were totally shocked. I called a doctor immediately. After checkup, the doctor told that my mother had a panic attack. He suggested me that I should not give her any kind of stress. When my mother regained her consciousness, I went into her room. Lucy was very afraid, so she didn't come with me. "Mom, are you feeling good now?" I asked.
Yes, my son.
She replied. Then, I asked her why she reacted that way. She was the one who wanted me and Lucy to get closer, and now her reaction was very strange.
Look, Peter, I know that I asked you to be with Lucy, but I never wanted you to marry her. And I will never give you permission for that. Forget all your feelings for Lucy.
No, not at all. I love Lucy with all my heart. She is my first love, and she too loves me. And you also liked her so much. Then why are you against it? Please, Mom, understand me, I said. She didn't reply. She closed her eyes to sleep. Next day, when I returned from the market, I saw some guests in the house. A young pretty woman and an aged lady were sitting with my mother. I greeted them and sat beside my mother. Then, my mother said to me,
Look, this is my friend's daughter, Alex. Isn't she beautiful? I have selected her as my daughter-in-law.
What?
I shouted.
No, this can't happen.
Then I turned towards those ladies and asked them to leave the house immediately. My mother was very angry at me for disrespecting the guests. How can you even think of marrying me with someone else? You know I love Lucy, I said.
But I have already told you that you can't love Lucy,
replied my mother. But why? Please give me a reason. Can't you see the pain in my eyes?
I cannot give you a reason now. It's not possible.
My mother replied.
You have to give me a reason, or I will take Lucy and get married without you.
I said angrily. My mother started to cry. Then she said,
Peter, my son, I love you so much. I cannot lose you. I don't want you to hate me. If you want to know the reason, then wait for my death.
I was so angry at that time that I said something very terrible.
Then die, Mom.
I still regret saying that to my mother. After that day, I stopped talking to my mom. She was getting weaker day by day. She was always sick. Months passed by, and my mom married Lucy to someone else. I tried to stop the wedding, but after seeing the condition of my mother, Lucy just wanted to leave the house. So, she got married. My mother used to cry every day. The doctor said that she had few days left. One day, I was returning to home. I saw few people outside my house. I was afraid. One man came forward and told me that my mother was dead. I rushed inside the house to see my mother. I felt as if I lost everything. It was the worst day of my life. One day after my mother's dead, I went into her room. I found a letter. It was written by my mother. I started to read it.
Peter, I know you hate me, but I couldn't tell you the truth, because if you knew the truth, you would hate me more. I didn't hate Lucy. In fact, I loved her. She was like my daughter, and I wanted you to treat her like a sister, not a lover. But it's time for you to know the truth. But I requested you to not to hate me after reading this letter. I was against your marriage with Lucy because she's your real sister. You have a blood relation with her. I had adopted you from a very poor family. I am not your real mother, but believe me, I have loved you like my own baby. When Lucy's parents died, I decided to take Lucy with us. But it was a wrong decision. Whatever happened is my fault. I am sorry, my son. Please forgive your mother. Don't hate me, because I will continue to love you, even if I die.
When I read this letter, I couldn't believe it. What do I do? What is my mistake? What's my mother's mistake? I couldn't think anything. Now, I have no mother, no sister, and no lover. What should I do? Can anyone tell me?
Let's learn about herbivores. Do you know what an herbivore is? An herbivore is an animal that eats plants. There are herbivores all over the world. They come in all sizes. A domesticated animal is an animal that has been bred by people to help people. Domesticated animals are descendants of wild animals. A cow is a good example of a domesticated animal. Most cows are not pets, but most cows could not survive in the wild. Cows are herbivores that have become dependent on people.
Can you name some important domesticated animals that eat plants? How about horses?
Horses are herbivores.
They eat grass and hay. The cows we talked about earlier are herbivores. They eat grass, hay, and grain. Sheep, llamas, and goats are also herbivores. Herbivores are important to people.
There are many wild animals that eat plants.
Can you name any herbivores that live in Africa?
If you said elephants, you are correct. You also could have answered zebras, water buffaloes, hippos, giraffes, and many other African plant eaters.
Can you think of any American herbivores?
Rabbits and groundhogs are small American plant eaters. American herbivores range from large, heavy animals such as moose and bison to smaller animals such as mice and squirrels. Deer, elk, pronghorn, mountain goats, and bighorn sheep are all American herbivores.
Herbivores do not hunt other animals, but are often prey to predators. Different herbivores use different defenses to avoid predators. Larger plant-eating animals can use their size and strength to fight off predators. Many of them have tusks, horns, or antlers that can be used for defense. What can a smaller herbivores do to avoid becoming dinner? Pronghorn can run faster than any predator that lives near them. Rabbits also use speed to escape predators. Rabbits will try to run quickly to their burrows to hide from predators. Squirrels can run up a tree if they sense danger. Plant eaters have different ways to avoid becoming a meat eater's meal. There are herbivores all over the world. Some of them are very large. Some of them are very small. Some herbivores live in groups, while others live alone. Some of our most important domesticated animals are herbivores. Many herbivores are wild animals. Herbivores are amazing animals.
Thank you for watching. See you in the next lesson. Goodbye.